The full name is Never So Free Queer Black Art and Assembly in Chicago. And it is a project that Arts and Public Life kind of dreamed up. We had done a film screening, I think in 2023, of a documentary called Fierceness Served, which was looking at queer Black spaces in DC. And it was such a rewarding experience. We partnered with space makers in Chicago, other arts organizations, and in a kind of typical fashion that happens at APL, we start a relationship in one way and then we kind of find a way to expand that. So what Never So Free became in 2024 was, and we didn't intend for this, but we did, we created a mini residency, a micro community between artists who identify as queer and Black, and we invited them for a 7-month experience with us where they would come to salons where we would excavate and look at the history of queer Black space making in Chicago, and then kind of track that lineage to contemporary folks who are making spaces today. The history often of, of queerness is, there are gaps in that as well, but in particular, when we know about spaces, they're often bars or it's a nightlife kind of understanding. And we wanted to get at how that is important and true, and we need those, but there's this other level of spaces that people were giving real care to, like truly creating civic infrastructure. And so we kind of did a meditation on those spaces and looked at contemporary spaces that are liminal. So like itinerant groups that don't necessarily, like have a brick and mortar or rent space, but move around the city. And then we had those artists who were with us for 7 months do offerings where whatever their art practice was, they were connecting in these 3 public moments and inviting an audience that expanded each time, so that by the end, we had this, we had an assembly of people interested in thinking about liberatory space and what it takes to keep that alive in Chicago. And then in 2025, we pivoted from that and did this bus journey where we went through the city and visited some contemporary spaces and pointed out some lost spaces and talked to artists like Jen Freeman, who has the House of the Lord in Mana Contemporary, or Greystone Collective, which is an artist space in Bronzeville. And, we got on the magical school bus and went to these spaces and talked to the folks who this is their passion project. Some of them have, other jobs during the day, but then they care enough about the communities that they're involved in that they've found ways to invest. And then we did a mixer for artists and space makers, so people could just find each other and get connected and get inspired so that they could share resources. And we hope that Never So Free just kind of continues to evolve. It is about relationships. And so we anticipate that through a relationship that we've already started, it will have a life in 2026 and beyond with some funding.
I went on the bus tour. It was so cool. That was such a special day.
It was. We saw like Frankie Knuckles' first apartment in South Shore, and that's cool in and of itself, but then to understand like why that was a neighborhood where he lived. The high rises that are in South Shore often had ballrooms, and so that's literally like a connection to ball culture, and house music is often associated with the warehouse. But through this, we learned there were gay men who were opening their homes to having parties because it was safer to organize there. And so, kind of disrupting the notion or expanding the understanding of the history of house music and gathering in general. It was really special.
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit more about that, because I think most people, when they think about ball culture or ballroom culture, they think about New York. They think about Paris is Burning. They think very specifically about New York. And I don't know, until I started doing research for this conversation, I didn't know there was a connection between house and ball culture. So I mean, I'd love to hear just if you could talk a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Oh, wow. So who we should get is Dwayne Powell, a music historian. I was like, I am not going to position myself as like a definitive public historian, but I can speak to patterns, and I think I'm like not going to answer your question, but I am going to say that, we did unlock this like really cool kind of understanding that spaces are you need custodians of spaces. You need people who care. And Chicago has had, a really long history of people finding ways to transform buildings into creative havens. So a contemporary version of what we saw was, we met a young woman, I think she was in her 20s. She purchased her first home in her 20s. She's turned it into an artist residency and a gathering space, a ceramic studio, robotic stuff in the garage. Like, it's just this ingenuity in Chicago of like, okay, I figured it out and I want to share it. I don't want to keep it. I want people to access it and know about it. And all along the way, that's what I felt was a very sort of Chicago spirit of like, well, we got this space. We applied for this grant, we did this thing, and we want as many people to benefit from it as possible. And that's not just true to the queer community. I think it's true to the arts community and also true to the Chicago spirit.
That reminds me, like, yeah, I like as I said, I can't position myself to properly answer that question. I know some friends of mine that are in like the ballroom culture and like are going to battles and performing, and it's still very like you have to be connected to the community to engage in it. And I really respect that, especially as an artist and performer myself. I'm like, take your space and make sure that it's like fully safe, fully the people that need to be in there. But also I really want to go in there and like, I will be respectful. Please let me in. I'll just stand in the back and, well,
we did have a sample. Like, we were invited in that one way with legendary, fabulous Freddie. We've invited, to both versions of Never So Free to do instruction. And we learned how, some of us learned, some of us made our way through, but like he explained, all the different elements, and then we got to sit and we were able to do it together. So there was like a level of the playing field where it was like, it's okay to not be good at this. And we're all going to try it out and be free.